I have my clipboard in one hand, my iced coffee in the other hand, and I see this one girl book it like a bat out of hell. I just had to throw everything and run as fast as I could to catch her. In hindsight, people were like, you should have never ran out by yourself. She could have fought you. I just knew she wouldn't. So I caught her, I restrained her, and then we hugged. And she was crying like, please just let me go. I just can't be here anymore. So it's really emotionally hard. I'm getting like emotional just thinking about it. So the kind of things that happen in marketing, it's just like, I don't know. I don't get too stressed out about it.
Hey, that's my guest today, Erin Balsa. She runs a solopreneur business called B2B Bold, where she offers courses and consulting for B2B marketers and content teams. And that's her background. Before going out on her own, she was the director of content marketing at Predictive Index. And I was stoked to have Erin on the show for a couple reasons. The first is that I've been a fan. I feel like I've followed her on LinkedIn for probably about 5 years. She's in a few Slack communities I'm in, but I've never gotten the chance to sit down and actually chat with her and hear her story. And it is a very cool and a very untraditional path. Instead of spending her 20s kind of grinding it out in the tech and in the marketing weeds, kind of ping-ponging her way up the marketing totem pole, she spent it as a teacher and as a supervisor at centers for teens that have behavioral and mental health challenges. It couldn't be different than the work she does today, but that experience had a massive influence on her perspective now that she does work in tech and now supports tech. So let's jump right in and hear her journey from her.
I grew up at the end of a tiny one-lane windy road in the middle of this really small town in southern Rhode Island. And the road was really interesting because it was a mix of houses, like Cape houses, ranch houses, and dilapidated abandoned shacks. I guess it used to be some sort of summer destination way back in the day. And it just fell apart. And people started buying these dilapidated shacks, tearing them down and building little houses. So the people that would be drawn to living in a place like that were typically a little strange. So I have all sorts of crazy stories from my childhood with all my crazy neighbors. I mean, I had this one guy who he had 2 big Rottweilers and he used to chain them up to 2 trees in his front yard. We called him the junk collector because he had his whole front lawn filled with different like old junky cars. And we'd walk home from school and he was very friendly. He'd like, hi, kids, watch me burp the alphabet. And he'd take a big sip of soda or beer and he would burp the alphabet. So that kind of like lets you know a bit about where I grew up and the kind of people that I was around. A lot of strange people, quirky, artistic. And I think that really did shape who I am because as an adult, I'm pretty quirky, artistic still. And I'm interested in some unconventional things that others find weird and sometimes creepy.
Cool. What's the town? Can you share?
Coventry, Rhode Island.
You know, it's so funny. I know Coventry, Rhode Island.
You do?
And I've been there multiple times because the main videographer at Wistia, his name is Chris Levine. I don't know if he grew up there or if his parents moved to Coventry, but they lived in Coventry, Rhode Island. They had this beautiful home. I don't know if it's a pond or a lake. It was like on
Johnson's Pond, maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
And we used to take like, we used to go down there. We would do like an offsite and we'd go on his pontoon boat. He had like his neighbor had a pontoon boat. We'd cruise around and do like a booze cruise on that. We'd go tubing in there. There's like a little bridge you could jump off of, like a 15-foot bridge into the water. Is that Johnson's Pond? I think it sounds familiar.
There's Tyoke Lake as well. So I'm not sure which one it would be. But like, that's the whole vibe there. People that I was friends with in high school, like granted, it was the 90s. I'm old. But we were like tie-dyed shirts and Birkenstocks and we were barefoot all the time, just like walking around barefoot and, you know, having parties in the woods and lighting fires and fishing. We used to go fishing after school. And I grew up actually that little street. Like I said, it was right on a pond. So right in my backyard, I could also go fishing. And it was a very kind of rural country type of a childhood, which is great for developing your imagination.
What were your parents into? Because obviously you end up getting into tech and now you're on your own as a solopreneur. I'm curious to know, like, if it was inevitable that you would end up here, but I'm guessing your parents didn't grow up working at startups or as entrepreneurs. No. What did they do?
My parents are awesome. They're still married after like 1 million years. My mom got married to my dad when she was 17, still in high school.
Wow.
My dad always worked fixing submarines. He was a welder and a pipe fitter on an electric boat. And my mom had a bunch of jobs, like different administrative secretarial roles. So they both always worked full time. They're definitely weird too. My like classic story I tell people to try to understand my childhood. I'm like, well, one time we were cruising along and my parents saw some roadkill and it was like a dead red fox. So they scooped it up, like threw it in the trunk, and we took it to the taxidermist. And now they have this like beautiful stuffed red fox at their house.
Wow. Is that like a core memory for you as a child, getting the red
there's
fox?
so many core memories like that are so quirky and so funny. But yeah, I definitely don't have that same story as some of the people. It's like, oh, my dad was like the SVP of sales at this like Fortune 500 company. I'm like, oh, cool. Like my dad worked at a high school as a janitor on Saturdays to make extra money, but can't help where you're from on either side. You're from where you're from, and that's that.
Yeah, I love that. And what kind of car are we talking about? Like, are we talking like a hatchback? Was this a truck? Was this trunk open air?
I don't remember. They had a lot of cars over the years, so I honestly don't remember.
All right, fair enough. I didn't know if there was like roadkill stench in the car as you drove to the taxidermy.
No, I don't know. I think they probably put like a trash bag in the back of the trunk or something and threw the roadkill in. My mom's gonna kill me when she listens to this because she actually is retired, but she follows my LinkedIn, and I know she's gonna like watch this and call me and be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you told that story." Hi, Mom.
Why? This is beautiful.
I know, it is beautiful.
All right. And so what were you into in high school? So we talked about where you're from. You said you're into fishing and stuff like that. But if we were to talk to one of your friends from sophomore year of high school, how would they have described you? What were you into?
Sophomore year of high school, I was into drinking in the woods and boys. I was always artsy. I always liked to draw, write, and paint. So I was always taking art lessons. And when I was a junior in high school, we moved actually to Massachusetts from Rhode Island. And I changed a bit there. I got with a new circle of friends, and I fell back into some old, more productive hobbies that I had when I was younger. So I got back into cheerleading. I got back into dancing. I became the editor of my high school newspaper. So that move was definitely good for me in terms of getting me a little bit back on the right track. Not to say I still didn't like boys and drinking, because I always did. I was a high school teenager, but I definitely have that kind of both sides to my story.
I feel like drinking in the woods is like core New England adolescence. Like you got to be drinking in the woods. There's got to be some bonfire that like maybe there's the one kid who had Cub Scouts when he was younger that knew just enough about how to keep it safe. Like I spent a lot of my weekends doing that too.
Yeah, totally.
How do you transition from that to the version of you that I'm meeting today? Like how did you start to get into tech? I mean, you mentioned that you were into the editorial in high school. And so is that the beginning of the bridge here?
I was always a good student. I always got good grades. My teachers always liked me. At one point, I had the keys to one of my teachers' like offices, so my friends and I could go in between classes because we were just good kids, and we did all these activities and got good grades, and so our teachers liked us. So I always had that going for me. I always knew I was going to go to college, even though my parents hadn't gone, because my mom always instilled in me from a young age, you're going to go to college. And I think I was in like 4th or 5th grade. She got me this big, heavy physical book, like before people used the internet. And it was a book on colleges. So for years, I used to just go through and read about different colleges and circle ones that seemed cool. So that was just always in my brain that I was going to college and that grades were important. So when it came time to decide what I wanted to do, I wanted to do something creative. Like I was in AP Art and AP English. That was my strengths. I always struggled more with the maths and the sciences, and especially as I got more advanced and complex. But I knew I was really interested and good at these two things. So I started researching what careers could someone like me do, and I came across marketing. So I said, oh, well, I can go study marketing. So I got into this good business school, which you're local to like me, so you probably know Bryant College.
Oh, yeah, right in Boston. Yep.
So I went there, and I lived there, and I loved it. It was so fun. Year and a half in, I had not studied one single marketing class. I was taking like macroeconomics, microeconomics, like all this really cerebral, difficult stuff that I didn't enjoy, and a lot of really hard advanced maths. And I managed to like have like a 3.2 or 3.3 GPA. I was killing myself. I was studying all the time. I had a tutor, and I was like watching my debt roll up, like add up. And I'm like, oh my God, at the time, I don't know, it was like $50,000 a year back then. Now it's probably like $150,000 a year. But I was like, shit, I have like all this debt. How am I going to pay this back? So I started thinking, what else could I do so that I don't have all this debt, and so that school's just like a little more suited to my natural strengths? So after some more thinking, I decided to transfer to a state school and study English and education, get my teaching license.
Where'd you go?
UMass Dartmouth.
Oh, cool. I went to UMass Amherst. That's why I was curious with the state school.
So much cheaper.
Yeah, I imagine.
So I graduated with very little debt, which was wonderful. And yeah, graduated starting off as a long-term substitute teacher for Providence Public Schools. I'd get paid $180 a day, which at the time was like great money. This was a long time ago. every morning they'd call me and they'd be like, okay, today we need you to teach math at such and such high school. And I would just go there and I might be there for a day. Some assignments were maternity leave, so I might be there for a couple months. So I did that for, 2 school years. And that was kind of my start into working. And I immediately got a 1-bedroom apartment. Like the second I had a job, I was like, I just need to be independent. I need to be on my own. And I've been working ever since.
And how does it work as a sub? Because I always was curious about this. I always thought substitutes were like people that just lived in town that were around. And I know that's probably not how it works. Is there like a district that you're sort of a free agent for?
Yeah, I was employed by Providence Public School District. So I only got assigned to schools within that district.
And so you just travel around. So do you work every day essentially with that?
Every day.
I just don't know how many teachers there are in a district like that. Like someone's always out. There's always a need.
Right. So some programs are like a substitute where they'll call you randomly. I was hired as a long-term substitute. So I was like a salaried employee. They get put into my pension, stuff like that. So it was a little bit more than just like a casual sub that got called every now and again. It was like an essential position to fill all the gaps that they knew they needed to fill.
This episode is presented by Navattic. If you've been following me or you're a fan of this show, you know how bullish I am on the interactive demo space and how much I love the Navattic team. Done a ton of stuff with them over the years, and they just dropped a bunch of new features that are really exciting. First, they've got a new template library. You can choose from a bunch of pre-made templates that have the most common demo use cases and all of the best practices built in, help you go 0 to 1 in a few seconds. If you're not sure what to build, they also have a new AI storyboard generator. It's exactly how it sounds. You drop in a website URL or some copy or a landing page, whatever you've got, it reads the information, pulls out the key sections, and then builds a working product demo for you in a couple minutes. And after you've built your demo, you're gonna probably want to use your data as part of your go-to-market approach. They've got a bunch of plug-and-play demo playbooks where you can send that interaction data to your CRM. You can use it to trigger alerts, all kinds of good stuff. It's actually a bunch of the things that my team built manually. It took us forever when I was in-house. So I love this. And after you've built your demo, if you need to make any adjustments, if you're displaying numbers or data as part of that, they have a new table AI feature, which helps you to clean up that data in a more conversational way and at scale in just a few seconds. They have made it so stinking easy to use your product as your marketing tool without needing an engineer or heavy design work. You can get started with all of this in their free plan. Check it out at navattic.com/value to get started. That's navattic.com/value. This episode of the show is presented by Appcues. If you work in product-led growth, you know how important activating and engaging new accounts is. Turning those new accounts into active users is critical to your success in a product-led environment, and it's typically why activated accounts is a North Star metric for many growth teams. Certainly why my team spent years working on our onboarding experience when I was in-house, both at Wistia and at Postscript. And that's why I'm so excited that they're sponsoring the show. They are just as passionate about helping the product-led community and companies fix their onboarding and retention as I am. They are the leading product onboarding and adoption platform for both web and for mobile apps, and they've created tons of resources to help this community. They've got the Product Adoption Academy, which is where you can get a free masterclass, like think courses, templates, examples, all the good stuff to help you break through your current plateaus and level up your product chops. I've got a course in there. It's my Value First onboarding course where I share the exact playbooks that my team used to help us onboard hundreds of thousands of new users. You can check out my course at appcues.com/value. That's appcues.com/value. And you can follow that link and explore all the different programs they've got inside of the Product Adoption Academy. And so how in the world do you get eventually into marketing? Like, how do you get from being a public school teacher to here?
Well, I had a lot of jobs throughout my 20s that were rewarding, and I had a lot of amazing moments, but they were also very stressful and very low paying. I think of one job I had that I was making like $27,000 a year, which is hard to live on. Yeah. And we got a raise one year, me and all my coworkers. It was like a penny an hour. So it's so funny when I hear people like complain like, oh, I only got a 2% annual raise. I'm like, yo, like, I know I sound like a boomer when I'm saying this, but I got a penny an hour one time. Like 2%, it's not great, but could be worse. So I did all these different jobs. Like I worked for 3.5 or I think so years, I worked for this agency of the state of Massachusetts, helping teenagers who were out of district. So maybe they had behavioral problems, maybe they had gotten in trouble with the law, maybe they had some mental health issues and they were institutionalized either in a residential school, a therapeutic residential school where they got the counseling that they needed, or maybe in a county house of correction. So they were really in kind of a prison or some sort of like locked detention center. So I worked with kids for, I don't know, maybe like 5 years in those kinds of programs. And my role would be to travel around. I made sure that the kids got services that they were entitled to, even though they were out of district. And I helped kids that were incarcerated earn their GED so that when they came out of the prison, at least they would have that.
And what does that term mean, out of district? Is that an industry term?
It's an education term, baby. So you're in district if you live in Providence and you go to a Providence public school. If the court or the judge orders you to go to a residential or detention center that's in another town, then you're out of district. It means that your district where your family lives, they're still responsible for paying for you. But since you're out of sight, sometimes you're out of mind. So they have people like me who are making sure that the kids were getting what they needed.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And do these kids want someone like you to help them? Or is this like they don't want the help and they're working against you?
It depends. Every kid's different. Some kids are very angry. Some kids hate you, even though, they see you as an old like loser, even though you're like 26. You're like, yo, I'm not that old. I'm only 26. I would never want to like be friends with you in real life. So some kids are just really mean. They just are angry at the world. Some are amazing and they are so sweet. I used to take kids on field trips, so they'd have to be really well behaved. They could save points over like months and months. And what they could do is use the points to buy products at their like little store, or they could ask, a staff member to take them out for the day. So I'd have kids like really well behaved, not buying things because they wanted to go out for the day. And I had one girl, I used to drive her around. She liked to drive through this town where she had lived as a kid. So we'd go to Dunkin' Donuts, we'd get an iced coffee, and we would just like drive for 2 hours through her town just talking. And she'd save up for like weeks and weeks just to have that experience.
Wow. And what was that like for you?
Great. I loved it. Going out with them and taking the kids places when they had worked so hard to earn that was like the best days ever because they were so well behaved. They were so happy. And it was some of the best like moments I had with them.
That's really cool. What was like an average week like in that job? Because that sounds, right? People in tech, I feel like complain like, oh, I'm in a sprint. Things are intense right now. I'm so tired. I would imagine that this is at a different magnitude. And so what's like an average week like if you could go back in time?
Yeah. So at this one residential school, I was a supervisor there. So I typically worked the day shift, which was 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. But at some nights, I would work the night shift, which would be 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. So first, you have like a kind of stressful schedule. And then the worst thing is if someone calls out, then you have to work a double. So there were some times where I'd go in at 7 a.m., the next manager couldn't come in. So then I would have to work till 11 p.m. So you're working 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's not easy. You are constantly doing headcount. Like it's like a OCD thing because you might have 12 kids in your unit that you're watching, and they're always like gunning to run. They always want to run away. And so you're constantly doing head counts. We had to like write them down every 5 minutes, but I did it much more than that. So I'd be having a conversation or leading an activity, and I was always like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, because I had to make sure that they weren't trying to run away or sneak off in a bathroom to meet their boyfriend. It was a co-ed residential school. And then you had the kids that were really severely troubled, which was very, very difficult. They'd hurt themselves a lot, very severely. They would do things because maybe someone else had an issue. So they would say, oh, I have the issue too. And they would manifest this issue to come true. It was really hard to watch and really sad. And a lot of times you'd have to restrain kids for their own safety. And it wasn't easy. I think of this one day, just to give you an example of what a day was like. It was like summer day, and I had like a nice morning. I went to the gym, I went shopping, got my Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee, and I come walking in, it's 3 p.m., and this was not a detention center, so it wasn't a locked program. We had an open door, which is why we're so crazy about the head counts. And I walk in with my iced coffee, I'm like, hey, everybody. And sometimes at shift change, it's when the kids take the opportunity to try things that they couldn't do in the middle of a shift. So people are going in, people are going out. I grab my clipboard. So I have my clipboard in one hand, my iced coffee in the other hand. And I see this one girl book it like a bat out of hell. She goes right out the front door. And I only had a split second to think. I didn't even have time to bend over and put my coffee on the floor. I just had to throw everything and run as fast as I could to catch her. And I caught her toward the end of the driveway. And in hindsight, people were like, you should have never ran out by yourself. She could have fought you. I just knew she wouldn't. We had a really good relationship by then. So I caught her, I restrained her, and then we hugged. And she was crying like, please just let me go. I just can't be here anymore. So it's really emotionally hard. I'm getting like emotional just thinking about it. So the kind of things that happen in marketing, it's just like, I don't know. I don't get too stressed out about it.
Right. Because you've been through some real stressful situations.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of job where I talk to people who, when they go through like a really intense work period, they'll have like work dreams and they'll like wake up thinking about a spreadsheet or like some number. Like, I feel like that's a common thing that I hear. Did you have that in this job? I would imagine it's a whole different level.
I don't know. I've had work dreams my whole life, even silly things. Like my very first job out of high school, I worked at Friendly's, like scooping ice cream. And I used to have dreams about like putting M&Ms on ice cream.
Did you really?
Yeah. So I think I've had like probably work dreams my whole life. But I don't know that, I don't know that I had like more dreams in any particular
not more
job.
intense there. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. And so where do you go from there? So you said you worked this job, what'd you say, for 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Well, not 5 years. I worked like in this field. And in summertime, I taught summer school. So I used to always go to a detention center, either in Brockton or up in Boston and Roxbury or somewhere like that. And I would teach summer school, which I loved. It was so fun because I got to do things other than the typical curriculum. So I got to really put my own spin on teaching. Really fun. So I had to find things to engage the kids. I would teach them about geography through street art. And I'd be like, hey, like, let's look at the street art and see like where it's from and where the person that made it was from. And they'd be really engaged. And if I was trying to teach them about writing or poetry, I would like have them write raps. And if they wanted to perform it, they could. And I would do all this really fun stuff and try to make it fun for them because nobody wants to be in a locked detention center going to school in the summer. Even if they need that, nobody wants to be there. So I would always try to make it as fun as I could.
Was there a world where you thought this would be your life? Like, so obviously your life has continued to evolve and you've had different jobs and different industries, but it sounds like you were passionate about this and maybe good at it. Did you think this would just be what you did forever?
I didn't know. I think for a little while, I just thought I would get married and like have kids and be a mom. So I figured I would just do this until that kind of came along in my life. And then, I hit 30 and I still was single and I bought my own house. And I, started having other income streams. I had a business with a friend of mine. We would host gold buying parties so people could bring their old, broken, unwanted gold jewelry. And we had like assets to test it in a really special scale. And we'd pay them cash on the spot. And then we'd take the gold to a smelter, corporate smelter. Great markup. It was great business. Cool. Did that for a while. I did a bunch of other like weird hustler type things. Like I cleaned out people's closets. I organized people's closets and garages. I did a lot of like odd things. I always kind of was business minded. I just don't think I really knew how to grow a business because I never finished business school. I was just kind of like winging it and never really knew what to do. So hit a place where like we could have gone all in, but I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to do this really. So one day I was at the hair salon in Providence reading my favorite little glossy like city magazine that tells you where to go eat and drink and what bands to see on the weekend. And I saw a little box and they were like, oh, we're hiring an assistant editor. I was like, wow, that would be really cool. At the time, like I said, I turned 30. I bought my own house. I had a breakup with this guy I was dating and I started a personal blog. So after work, working with, these kids and these students, I'd come home and I would just like write my little personal blog and people loved it. Like I just shared it on Facebook. I didn't know how to market it or get it in front of an audience. I didn't know what SEO was or ads or any of that. So I would just like share it on Facebook with the people that knew me and everyone freaking loved it. They were like, holy shit, you need to be a writer. You're so good. I'm like, oh, this is so validating. Maybe I should be doing this. So then I saw that ad and I thought, what the hell? I'm going to apply and see what happens. And I didn't have like a ton of high hopes because I'm like, how are they going to hire me for an editor? I've never even been like a professional writer. But they ended up giving me a chance and giving me a writing test and an editing test, and I passed. And I ended up getting this really cool job at like the perfect time in my life, running all around the city, going to all the trendy places, telling people where to go and meeting all these really artsy, interesting business owners and cool people. And it was just fabulous. It was such a great experience.
And is that in Providence or is that somewhere else?
That's in Providence.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah.
As like a side note, my wife started her professional career working in magazines, in editing back in the heyday when everything was printed out and, not everything was digital. And she loved it too. She describes it the same way that you did. Like it lights her up when she talks about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was print magazines. We had 4 print magazines. So there was the main city magazine plus some more local ones. And we had a magazine go to press like every week. So we would do like table reads. I'd have like red pens, like you cannot fuck up. You cannot have any mistakes in there. It's not like a website where you can just hop on and like make an edit. So we would really like take it seriously. And but it was so fun. I loved it.
She has a binder. It's probably upstairs somewhere. I bet we haven't unpacked it since we moved last year. But like basically clippings of like kind of her greatest hits, like her reel. Do you have something like that?
My mom keeps all that stuff for me. I don't. I'm a little bit of a minimalist. So I'm always like purging the house and getting rid of things. My mom, though, she likes to keep all of my clippings and she has binders and things like that.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the show. If you are, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. The data shows something like 40% of the people who listen to the show are actually subscribed. It is the best way for you to support the show, and it helps the algorithm find other listeners who are just like you. If you're feeling generous, a quick rating or review makes a huge difference as well. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. Now let's get back to this episode. And then you're off to the races, right? So then you're in content marketing, and that's kind of how you start getting into tech, and you end up at Predictive Index, and then obviously you're on your own as a solopreneur. I feel like you're made to be a solopreneur, just like the way that you talked about it, being a hustler, trying a lot of different things, sort of having the spirit of like, fuck it, I'll figure it out. Like, I feel like you need that to survive as a solopreneur. And it sounds like that's been a part of you forever.
Yeah. And you definitely have to have the fortitude to withstand the ups and downs, which I never realized. Like, I think I was a little delusional when I went into this business because I was doing it on the side on and off for many years. Like, I don't know, 10 years, just like freelancing here and there when opportunities came to me, or if I needed a little extra money, I would like find an opportunity. So I was at the Predictive Index, making like pretty good money there as a marketing director. I started posting on LinkedIn. I grew an audience pretty fast. People started reaching out to me like, hey, will you help us with our content? Can you do this? Can you do this? I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I actually gave my company like a 6-month runway. Like, I'm going to go work for myself. I'd love to leave in January of 2022. And they actually made that happen and actually kept me on because they're such a great company.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty bold thing to do, though, right? To be like, hey, I'm going to leave and go do this, and I'm going to give you a heads up, and I'm going to hope you don't fire me tomorrow, but I'm going to do it either way.
I'm like a radical honesty person. I'm like really weird like that. I just can't be secretive. I just need to like be truthful. And if it doesn't work out.
Were you nervous to tell your boss? Were you nervous going into that?
No, I had a very supportive boss, and it's a very supportive culture. And I kind of had a feeling that it would be safe for me to do that. And if anything, it really helps the company because I'm able to give them the time to really put together a smart plan. At the time, I had a big team. I had like 10 or 12 people on my team and a couple different functions under me. So like, imagine if I gave a 2-week notice, that's hella stressful. Like, we were able to really take our time to find the right person. We shifted someone in from another department who actually didn't have a background in marketing. But at the time, my managers under me were so great that they actually didn't need like a marketing expert because they already had someone like a CMO. They didn't need like a director level marketing expert. They had the expertise so that they could motivate and coach their people. What they really needed that I lacked was that really operational mindset of somebody who can take what's already built and operationalize the shit out of it. I'm not that. I'm a builder. Like, I like to take things where it's like a shit show, it's chaos, it's a mess, it's nothing, and I'm going to build and it's going to get running and we're going to be good. But when it's like, okay, we're at the next stage, like now we need to operate. I'm like, no, I'm out. Like, that doesn't interest me. So it's kind of perfect timing. Like, it was at a time where they almost didn't need me and they needed someone different. And I was able to give them that time to find the right person. And I was able to train her on everything I knew and all the people on my team. So it was kind of like perfect.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And for you going out on your own, you didn't know how much money you were going to make. Like, you didn't know it was going to work out. There was just interest and enthusiasm. Is that fair?
I was saying how I was delusional. I lost my track of thought. So the reason I said I was delusional, since I was freelancing on the side, I was like contractually, I could tell I was going to make $140,000 from freelancing. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty good. Like, I could probably quit my job because...
Right, 140 grand. I could have a boss to make 140 grand. I could be on my own and make 140 grand. I take that every day.
So that's why I knew that I could go. So my first year, I made more money than I've ever made in my life and more than I ever thought I would. It was incredible. I was so fortunate. I worked my ass off, but I did it. My second year, also incredible. I didn't make as much like top line revenue. When you look at my like effective hourly rate, I made more per hour. And that's because, surprise, I got pregnant with baby number 3. So I only worked like January through August, and I didn't work the last 4 months of the year. So yes, I made a little bit less, but ultimately like everything was trending in the right direction. I'm like, oh my God, like this is so easy. I'm going to make so much money forever. But what they don't tell you and what most people don't know, either you have a first couple years that are really fucking hard before you figure it out and make money, or if you're someone like me who has a personal brand and a lot of early demand, that demand runs out because all the people that are like chomping at the bit, dying to work with you, they're the first ones to jump and they're on your wait list and they're like, hell yeah, you're awesome. And then like eventually that kind of like goes away and you're almost like starting from scratch with like, oh shit, my pipeline's drying up. I gotta get more people interested. So that's something that, I don't know, I kind of just thought it was always going to be easy sailing. And adding a third kid to the family. I also moved overseas to England when my baby was like just turned 4 months old. That was really hard. So trying to like adapt my family to this new country in the middle of winter, and it was like gray and we didn't know anyone. I had no friends and family, trying to like pick up my business and only working part-time. So I've only been working part-time last year and this year. My nanny is a part-time nanny. So like how much can you really grow a business if you only have 3 days a week to even like do your client work? You have almost no time left for working on the business. So it's been definitely a reset period for me. The first 2 years were like, go, go, go. Holy shit, this is awesome. And then the last like year and a half has been more like, oh, okay, I definitely need to add some more stability. I'm not stressing about it right now while I'm still here in England. When I get back to Boston, I'll put the baby, who's 1.5, into daycare 5 days a week. And I'll have that time I need to really grow the business and get back to where I know I can be.
Your story really resonates with me. I'm coming up on 4 years. So we're recording, it's mid-May. It'll be 4 years for me the first week in June. And I had the same story you did. So I went on my own, I think it was June 2021. First year was great. I kind of got up and running fairly quickly without having a massive audience, just had a little bit of influence and experience in my space. And at a time when everybody was looking for that experience, right place, right time. First year was great. Second year was even better. And I effectively doubled the income that I made when I was in-house on my own that second year. So I was like, oh, this is incredible. I don't even know what I'm doing yet, only up from here. And then the third year, which was 2024, I took a fairly big step back. Like I think the business contracted by like 40, like my revenue contracted by like 40%. And there's reasons to it, but it doesn't matter. So I took a massive step back. And then this year, I feel like mindset wise in 2025, I feel like this is the first real year of my business where it's like, all right, I got to be thinking about systems. I need to be thinking about lead generation. I need to be thinking about some kind of a low ticket thing that upsells people to my main thing. What do I want my main thing to be? How does the podcast fit into it? How can I dedicate more time to marketing? And so I feel like I'm like a true operator this year. And in the past, I felt like more of a hustler figuring it out. And you're right. It's in contrast. I just had April Dunford on the show. I just published the episode yesterday. And she had the first story, which is she went on her own. I assumed April batted 1,000%, but she said my first 2 years on my own, I really struggled. And she's like, I almost didn't keep going on the third year. I was going to quit and become a dog walker or something. And then the third year, I kind of figured it out and things really took off. And so you nailed it. Like that is sort of the two options.
Yeah. That's what I hear all the time from everybody. A lot of people just give up and they don't stick it out. And I think sticking it out, it's really hard because it's so much easier to think, oh, at least if I go back, I might make less but at least I'll have that stability. At least I don't have to have those down months that are like terrifying, right?
And so has there been moments where you've questioned the path that you're on and the focus that you have?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, on and off ever since having my third baby and coming here. It was such a challenging year in 2024 emotionally. My older son had a terrible time. He didn't want to be here. I'm a little bit of an empath in that way. So seeing him sad made me sad.
How old is he? Sorry to interrupt you.
He's 10 and a half, my oldest.
So old enough that he's got his own friends and his own stuff.
Yes. Yep. And he missed his best friend from back home, our next door neighbor. And that just broke my heart to see how much he missed him. Yeah. So it was a tough year. And I think, you said mindset. hell yeah. Like when I first attracted this huge LinkedIn audience, when I first attracted all these inbound opportunities, everything fell on my lap. In hindsight, looking back, I was like my best self. I was like my kindest self and my most like driven self and my most authentic self. I was just like operating in this really happy, positive space. And I think I just naturally, things just gravitated me like to like a magnet. And then in 2024, that wasn't me. Like I was actually, I mean, it sounds so hippie-ish. Some people would say vibrating at a lower frequency. I was sad and like isolated, and it's really hard to have 3 kids and a baby with no friends and family here. So I think that a lot of that really did repel some of the opportunities that I attract earlier, even if I don't think I ever showed up that way. I think I can fake it pretty well and put a smile on, but I think the universe knows like what's up. So
Always.
this
It
year I'm
always
feeling a lot
knows,
better, and I think I'm starting to turn in the right direction. So that's good. I think it's a lot about training yourself and pushing past those down moments. Everyone has them. Everyone has bad shit that happens in their life or trying times. It's like pushing through that, giving yourself some grace when you're in a kind of a down period. It's okay if I don't make a fuck ton of money. I just need to like get my family through this period, and we just need to survive it. And then tides will change and I can go back up again. So that's what I've learned from this last year and a half that I've been living in England.
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting. You talk about the energy and the vibration. I'm fully a believer in that. I'm going to pull a book from the side of my desk. This is the #1 book that I recommend more than any how-to business mindset leadership book. It's this. I probably talked about it on this show before.
Project.
It's a book on mindfulness and manifestation. I saw an ad for it on Instagram when I first went on my own. And the ad was like, oh, this book helps you manifest all the things that you want into reality. And if you buy into this, you can unlock the life of your dreams. So I'm a believer in that at least in concept. Yeah. And so this ad had comments turned on. There was like 1,000 comments. Half of them were from people that were like, this book is a bunch of bullshit. If you want to manifest, just like close your eyes or journal for 5 minutes in the morning. You don't need to waste your $23 on this book. The other half of the comments were like, ignore those idiots. They didn't read or buy the book. If you read the book and you follow the book, everything that you write down has come true. That's been my experience. Yeah. And I was like, well, fuck it. For $23, I like those odds. That's about half.
Right.
And so I bought this book twice. And I fully believe what you're talking about, which is the energy is kind of the most important thing. And actually, before I get on a consult or I try to get on like a new client call, I block aside 15 minutes to get into the right energy. And I even have like triggers written on the top of my sales doc that I fill out as I talk to new prospects. And the reminder is for me to have the right energy and the right intention. And I find that I close way more deals when I bring that version of me.
That's amazing. I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening. For me too, it's not just about like, oh, I'm doing all these amazing things living in England. Like we're so fortunate. We've traveled to 8 countries in this past year, like with our kids. Wow. And it's just been like the best thing ever. So like we're happy. Everything's great. But like the energy isn't just from like, oh, life's good, I'm happy. For me, when I was like vibrating at my highest frequency and I was attracting all of that, I was in my deepest confidence I've ever felt in my whole life. Like I had worked my way up from, $27,000 a year in this shitty job to like making a ton of money, worked my way up to a marketing director. The people I worked with respected me. People listened to me. And I was in such a supportive work environment for 3.5 years where I felt like I got kind of like, we always joked, those of us who didn't go to grad school, we got our Harvard MBA by default because we got to work under a CEO and president who did get their Harvard MBA, taught us everything they know, and we used to teach other leaders through our content. So I really learned so much, connected all these dots that I wish I would have known way back when I had my gold business, because I probably could have made a fuck ton of money because I didn't know shit and I made so much money. And I just think like, wow, if only I had access to these kinds of people earlier in my life, and I didn't. I had access to, the burping garbage collector and that kind of stuff. So it just took me a lot longer than some others to get that confidence and to get that knowledge that gave me a strong foundation to go start my business and have the confidence to do that.
Hey, if you're enjoying the stories on this show and feeling like you're ready to tackle some of your own hurdles, I'm here to help. If you didn't know already, I offer one-to-one coaching specifically for people who work on or around growth teams who want to have a bigger influence and impact in their roles. Maybe you're navigating some tough moments, whether it's managing your team or handling feedback, Maybe you just want to step into a bigger leadership role, or maybe you're at a unicorn company today and you want to make sure that the company doesn't outgrow your skill set. Either way, I can help. If you're interested in learning a little bit more, head to deliveringvalue.co/coaching to learn a little bit more and set up a call with me to see if we jive. All right, enough from me. Back to the episode. One of the things that I think about a lot as a solopreneur is the risk. I think it's called key man risk sometimes, which is if you're a solopreneur, by definition or by default, you are the business, right? You're the service provider, you're the marketer, you're the CEO of the business. You're the reason why people pay your business money. And with that, sometimes I feel like the stakes are high. Like if I was to get injured and be unable to work for something totally outside of my control, that's a huge risk for me and my family. My wife also works, but financially, I'm the primary earner for our family. And I'm wondering if you ever think about any of that as a fellow mom and as a solopreneur and someone who's trying to build something big.
Yeah, I mean, I had my third child when I was self-employed. So when I found out I was pregnant, I did a lot of research to find out what I was entitled to. And turns out I was paying into this program for self-employed people to take a paid family leave. In Massachusetts, it's called like PFMLA or something like that. So I actually was able to pay myself for, I think, 3 of the months that I was on maternity leave. I took like 6 months off with my last child. That was amazing. Like, how great is that those programs do exist? And a lot of people that are working for themselves, they don't know that. Or maybe, their business isn't set up right, so they're not putting taxes into the right, work with somebody. If you're going to do this, get an accountant, get some advice, make sure that you are planful, especially if there's any chance you might have a baby while you're self-employed. That's like my first advice for anyone who's listening, because I was so lucky. I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have only taken 12 weeks off instead of 6 months if I wasn't getting paid. Other than that, yeah, I mean, if you get sick, you don't have anyone to shift the work to. I don't outsource anything. I mean, I could. I have some really great people in my Rolodex that I trust, and I could get them up to speed if I needed to. But I do think about, one of the biggest things that I think about lately, I'm like, okay, so I've changed my business offers a bit since I started. I've been in business 3.5 years. When I started, I was a fractional head of content, fractional director of content. I helped across 4 key areas, just like you would if you were in-house: people, process, strategy, and execution. So I build your content engine, I train somebody to run it, and then I hand it over to you. And that worked awesome. There's like a big need for that. And then I started shifting away from the messaging of fractional because I found myself being on too many calls. And I was like, oh, it feels too much like it's a job. So then I kind of set myself up to do more just straight content strategy where, I'm helping you execute it, but I'm still doing a lot of different things, right? So I have this assessment. I test people. I'm like, okay, so what do you need to have good content? And a lot of times the foundation's missing. I can't just come in and start writing blog posts for you because you don't have a freaking like differentiated point of view. And there's all these other like foundational things that have to happen before you can just start creating content. So my kind of aperture of services got even wider. I was trying to make it smaller, but it still got wider. And when it's very wide like that, it's really hard to hand off the work to somebody if something should happen. So I'm thinking like in the future, do I want to niche down just to have one core offer? That would be research reports. I have like the most depth of expertise, like the best samples, the best kind of work to show. And those make the biggest impact most of the time with my clients. They see like quick request demos coming from that and whatever. So I think like, wow, if I did eventually take my business there, the process is easy. I can easily outsource that to people. It's hard to outsource my whole entire like brain and my assessment and my framework and all this crazy stuff that I do with clients. So I have thought about that. I have thought about when the time comes that I think I might need to outsource some things, I will probably niche down to research reports. I'm 44 with a 1-year-old. I know it's crazy, but I'm 44 and I found out when I had my baby, my eyesight just like deteriorated like very rapidly. And I was like, one day I was like trying to sign a credit card at a restaurant and I just couldn't see anything. I'm like, what the hell? So
when my wife was pregnant, her body did all kinds of weird things. I think she had gestational diabetes. Was this kind of like that? Was this during the pregnancy or after the birth?
It was right after the birth that I noticed. I had him and I was like, oh my God, I can't see. I think it was like getting progressively worse throughout the pregnancy. But then once he was here, I was like, I can't see a thing. So I went to the eye doctor and they're like, oh yeah, you need like a +2 and you have, astigmatism and all this stuff. I'm like, okay. So I got my new glasses and I could see again. It was great. And then I, moved here and it just kept getting like a little bit worse. And it's like, I got to go to the eye doctor. And I don't drive here in England. We live in the city. So I just walk everywhere, like 7-8 miles a day. And I'm outside a lot. And I'd stop walking and I'd be like walking with my daughter and my son. And I'd be like, does it look like foggy to you? And they were like, no, Mom. Like, what? Like, I kept saying, like, I'd be driving in the car with my husband. I'm like, is it foggy out? Like, something's going on. So I go to the eye doctor. Turns out, like, my prescription is now at 2.5. So it's deteriorated more. And turns out I have cataracts, which is crazy and very rare for people my age. And I researched it. It's like 1% of all people with cataracts are in their 40s.
Wow.
Typically, 1%. It hits people like 70s, 80s, maybe 60s. So I'm super rare. And they said, well, you're so young. It's not bad enough that you need surgery. So we don't recommend it because it creates other issues with focusing. And being that you're so young, you have so much life ahead of you, you're still working, you need to have that focus ability. So, okay, so we're just going to monitor it until like it gets to a point where it really does interfere with your life. And then you'll just have the surgery. So thinking about that, I'm like, holy shit, like what if I have like more rapid deterioration and I can't do my job? I mean, as it is, I have a 2.5. I like zoom everything in like super big. I hopped on the call with you today and I was like, do I look really like cloudy and white? Like I just can't even really see myself clearly. Getting ready for a podcast and like putting on makeup is hard because I can barely see my face. Eye makeup's impossible. It just makes all these different challenges that you don't think about until it happens to you. It's one of those things, You know when you have a kid and you're pushing a stroller in the city, you're like, oh my God, these sidewalks are terrible and these curbs are terrible. And God, these fucking people with wheelchairs, they have to live like this their whole fucking lives. And I only became like aware of it because I had a kid with a stroller I have to push around. It's the same thing with eye problems. You just take all this stuff for granted. You take for granted being able to see your computer screen or being able to see yourself on video and not be in like a hazy cloud. But getting back to where I'm thinking about taking my business, I think I will eventually go to a place where if I need to outsource some pieces, I'll set myself up so that it's easier when that day does come. And hopefully it's not soon.
What is cataracts? Like all I know about it is I worked at the drugstore when I was in high school and there was this special rack of glasses that kind of had the wraparound, but I don't actually know what it is. I mean, you sort of described some of the symptoms, but like, what is it?
It's worse in the sunlight. So if I'm in the car, taking a walk, sitting by a window, it just feels like I'm really like in this cloud where I can't see anything clearly.
The irony is like with your current like sun through the window, like for people who are watching this on YouTube, like you are in the haze right now. It's not you.
Yeah, thank you. So I have these transition lenses. So if I go outside, they instantly darken because one of the best things you can do with cataracts is like protect your eyes from getting worse. So I instantly transition to them. And it's cool because sometimes if I'm like in an older building with bad windows, they're like slightly like smoky and I'm like, ooh, I like this look. So I'm like really digging my transition lenses. My husband's like, you're so old, you're getting transition lenses. I'm like, they're badass. Like they look cool. So I'm very thrilled with them. And they're hopefully going to help me stave off that deterioration. Because before I almost never wore sunglasses because I was always with my eyeglasses. And if I had sunglasses on, I couldn't see. So I'm not going to be like blind putting on sunglasses. So this was kind of a no-brainer.
Has this changed like what you're thinking about and what you're focused on? And right, because now you have a different risk that like just probably what it was an unknown before, right? You're like, well, if I have a health issue, maybe, then I'll revisit things. Has this changed like your passion for building your own thing or your current plans at all?
No, I mean, there's always that little tiny piece of me that thinks if I found the perfect full-time job, I'd go back in-house. So that's not off the table. I always say never. I might stick with this forever. I might get the dream job and do that. I don't know. I'm very flexible. I've always been a little impulsive. I go where it feels right. And I don't worry about what other people will think. I just follow like this is the right thing to do. So I have a few other things in life that I might explore down the road. When I had my own house, I used to rent out rooms on Airbnb and I was an Airbnb superhost. I fucking loved it. I had repeat visitors. I was like the tour guide. I would put together these really cool packages in their room and I'd take them in for drives around the city and sometimes like go out for a beer. And I loved it. So I could see myself doing something like that again. When my kids are older and or for a different type of building or house that I would own. You don't need as much staring at the computer in that kind of a role. You just need enough to like post it on some sites, answer inquiries, and then it's really just hands off if you have people helping you with the property management piece. I used to do that all myself. I did all the beds and all the towels, and I could still do that or outsource it. And it's really just being that welcoming host, which is something I really love doing. So I love showing people around and making them feel comfortable. And so that's something I think about too. Like if it ever comes to that point, I'll go back to that because I was good at it and I liked it.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if there was other things that you would consider doing outside of tech.
For sure.
If there's other things like that.
Yeah. I also had a moment when everybody suddenly got so obsessed with AI and like ChatGPT, which, yeah, it's great. Like, it does a lot of great stuff. But I felt really disenfranchised with marketing and content marketing because I was seeing all these people post stuff like, look, like I use this new tool and it wrote 10 LinkedIn posts. And they literally press post without even reading the post. They were like, look how easy it is. I'm going to do it right now. Click. Oh, yeah, it looks good. Post. Okay, great. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't want to live in this kind of world. Like, how do you not care what you're putting out there? You're not even going to review it. And everyone's like, that's amazing. I'm going to start doing that too. And I got a little bit bristly about that because I think having like the creative soul in me, being someone who always was an artist and a painter and a writer, I really respect the craft. And I think that a lot of people are getting into it now that don't respect the craft. They just want a quick buck. And that just doesn't jive with like who I am as a person. I also have a little bit of a problem with our collective societal obsession with always doing things bigger, faster, more. I don't know that that's the right way to live. I don't think that's like in the human nature to always be bigger, faster, more. Like we have these big revolutions, like the Industrial Revolution, things changed. And, you know, now we're coming toward this new revolution, which is really going to change things. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Like I still like the value of hard work, the value of human to human communication. I like in-person events. I like conversations like this. You know, there's a lot of nuance that gets lost, even sometimes in writing. Never mind if you're not even fucking like reading what you're posting. It's just like, why do I want to read this? Like, I'm not even reading somebody's thoughts. I'm reading nothing. And it just really disenfranchised me. So I took a step back. I took some time off of LinkedIn, put my head down in some like work projects and came back. I'm like, okay, I can deal with this. I just need to block the people that are liking all this stuff and putting it in my feed. And I need to comment more on the people who do love the craft. And it's not that I don't want to know what I can do with AI. I do use it. I premium ChatGPT and Claude. It's a great thinking partner, but I don't want to be around the people that outsource the thinking and that don't give a fuck about the craft because that's just not my thing.
I totally agree. When I started seeing more of that on LinkedIn specifically, I actually got excited. I was like, oh, this is great because now the average has gone so low that it's like if you're just authentic and real and maybe share things that are, I don't know, just not cookie cutter or like based on your lived experience or maybe vulnerable, you know, kind of related to the show, it will be so much easier to stand out. So I got excited, but I totally understand. I mean, I went through that too, where it's like so eye rolling. And I think a lot of engineers are going through that as well, where there's so many videos, especially on YouTube. They're like, oh, you can build this whole app that made $3 million ARR in 4 months or whatever, just with a sentence of code that you don't even have to write yourself. And I think engineering is kind of going through a similar thing where it's like, well, it's not really how it is. That makes for good marketing, but it's not really the reality.
Yeah.
And I was laughing as you were sharing all that because literally right before this recording, one of my coaching clients sent me an email. They're like, hey, you should put this prompt in a ChatGPT. And the prompt is something like, hey, based on everything you know about me, what's something that I might not realize about myself? And it doesn't have to be a nice thing. Just make sure that it's real and honest. And so I did that. And ChatGPT came back and it said that I push too hard and then I work too hard and that I'm too goal driven and like outcome oriented. And it suggested that I spend more time and create more space for creativity and thinking and like leisure. And it's like, here, the robot do what was best. You know, it's kind of saying what you were saying. Like the robot literally said, I'm the problem, quit pushing.
Yeah, that's funny. And someday maybe we will be moving toward a society where there is less work days, which scares the shit out of me too, because how do you have value in society if you're not able to be a productive member of society, right? So I don't know. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Last weekend, we were in Sweden, in Stockholm. We were at the Nobel Prize Museum. And I was, reading about this Nobel laureate in literature. And he wrote this book all about AI. And I'm also like into dystopia and sci-fi, and I'm into all of it. And this story was about this AI builder who was cloning. So there's a sick girl, human, and she had like an AI robot friend. And then the AI robot friend slowly discovered that they were cloning the sick girl, and they were basically stealing all of the insights from the robot from spending time with the girl. It's called like Clara and the Sun, if anyone's interested. It's fucking fascinating. And these are the kind of things that could happen. And I don't know, it's like, I love it, but I hate it. I almost want to go back to like the 80s and 90s where we just, like we talked about, drank in the woods. You had to go drive to see a friend. Nobody wanted to do anything faster. If anything, we wanted to like slow down time so we could just like enjoy it more. Stay out later with your friends, not have to rush home for curfew. And now I feel like we're just pushing faster. And it's kind of fucked up because all the companies I work with, everyone has AI-powered technology. So here I am putting out all this content about how you need to have this, you need to do things this way because, you'll save time and you'll have more happy clients. And that's literally the whole world right now. It's all anyone's pushing. Yeah. And part of me fundamentally disagrees with that. So sometimes there's that little push and pull as a marketer. It's like you have to play the game, but part of you feels a little bit like, oh, I hate playing this game. It's like a tough place to be.
And so for you, what are your goals for this next chapter of your career, right? So you said getting ready to make a move, family's coming back, going to reset, focus on your business, knock on wood, as long as the health stays in a good place. What are your goals for this next chapter?
Definitely making sure that I have some flexibility in my schedule, which I've had the whole time I've been here. I've been working part-time. I want to go back to full-time, but I also want to have some flexibility. So like maybe every other Friday, I will do stuff for myself, like go on a bike ride, or, I have a whole like little mindfulness area in my room where I do like my rituals and things that are really grounding. So I want to carve out time to do that, read a book, paint, just time when I don't have to do work and my kids aren't needing me. So I definitely want to make time for that because that's what really fills my cup and makes me really who I am and whole and takes me away from all this faster. Those are the things that let me slow down in this really fast-paced world. And then in terms of business, I don't know. I mean, I just want to keep working with really good clients, like nice people who respect the craft and really appreciate the value of content marketing. I don't want to sell anybody on the value of content marketing ever again. Luckily, I haven't had to over the past like several years in business. People come to me bought in like, yes, we know we want bold content. We want bold thought leadership. Like, cool, I can do that for you. So I hope I just get back to an energetic state where I'm just kind of in my confidence and attracting the right clients and just being creative and doing things that fill my cup and traveling more. I'm a little afraid that once I'm out of Europe, it won't be as easy to see so many countries. So it's going to be difficult. We usually take about 3 trips a year when we're in the States. So this year has been like 8 trips a year. It's been pretty amazing.
Definitely a little harder when you're in Massachusetts to visit other countries because a 6-hour flight is way different when you have little kids, especially if it's like a red eye. My wife and I, we struggle with this. We like debate, like when can we go back to Europe again? Do we leave the kids here? Do we bring them? When would it make sense? I don't know. It's hard.
I bring my kids freaking everywhere. My kids are good travelers because their grandparents always lived in Portugal. So they've been traveling, all of them, since they were like wee itty bitty 4-month-old babies. So they're really good. The little one threw us for a loop. He's the hardest kid. So he still comes everywhere, but it's not always easy. I'm like, damn, like the first 2 were great travelers. He does it. He loves life. He loves to travel and see things, but he's a handful.
As we wrap here, what needs to be said that you haven't had a chance to say yet directly?
Yeah, I mean, I know people listening are marketers. Follow your heart. Don't be afraid to follow your heart. I think that we feel like others are going to judge us and there are expectations for what our career should look like. I don't think it should be that way. One of my best friends, she's super smart. She's a badass. I have stories for days. Known her since I was 15. She not only like runs Ironman triathlons and was in the military. She's a doctor of chiropractic, had her own practice for many years. Recently decided she wants to step away from being a doctor of chiropractic and she wants to do project management. And she's been job hunting for like 8 months for entry-level roles that she is more than capable of doing. She got a certification from Bryant in project management and she still can't get a job. And I think she's so fucking brave Because A, people think she's nuts for walking away from like that career after working so hard and being so good at it. And B, it's like, oh, you might feel like you're being judged as a failure because you're going to be now starting from the scratch in an entry-level job. But she doesn't give a shit. That's what she wants to do. That's what feels right in her heart. And I know because she's so great, if someone gives her a chance, they're going to be blown away. I think we should all have the guts to do that. Put a plan in place so that you have enough funds coming in so that you can follow your heart. And don't stick with something if your heart's not in it. Like maybe take a break, maybe you'll feel different. But if you don't feel different, just like try something different and be okay with that. That's like my best advice for anyone.
I love that.
Thanks.
Erin, thanks for coming on and sharing your journey and a few of the lessons along the way.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.